everyone, I'm Matt Ford, and welcome to the Good Trouble Show. The world is, well, on fire. You have regional wars like Ukraine, ecological disasters, political chaos, economic instability, and then you wrap all of that together with AI and NHI. It's really no wonder everyone feels like reality has been flipped upside down. So tonight, to help us make sense of this global moment, we're joined by someone who's spent his entire career working at the intersection of geopolitics, planetary risk, and transformative change. He is the founding president of the State of the World Forum, a convergence of literally some of the brightest minds on the planet to tackle these very issues. Please welcome Jim Garrison. Jim, welcome to the show. For our viewers who may not know your work, tell us a bit about yourself.
My name is Jim Garrison. I think probably the most important thing to know about me is that I did my PhD dissertation on the question of why it is that after several billion years of evolutionary life here on planet Earth, our species in our generation has brought the entire life process to the brink of extinction through escalating threat of nuclear war and now climate change. I did this at Cambridge University back in the early 1980s, and that really has shaped my life ever since. What I found is when I would talk to people about nuclear weapons, they would always say, well, we need nuclear weapons because of the Russian threat. So I actually went to Russia in the fall of 1982 and discovered that the Russians were friendly, had no real intent of invading Western Europe and the NATO alliance. And I realized, Matt, something fundamental that has really shaped my thinking and my activities ever since is that we don't need nuclear weapons because of a threat. We need a threat because we have nuclear weapons. And that realization, that inversion of conventional wisdom really shaped my activities. I had the great privilege beginning in 1985 all the way through 2001 to work with the Russians, work with Mikhail Gorbachev for 10 years, convening meetings all around the world through the State of the World Forum. I then went into academia after 9/11 when Mr. Gorbachev and I decided that elegant politics was no longer possible.
I'm gonna interrupt here for a second because
Sure.
we both know who Mikhail Gorbachev was, but maybe for the youngsters watching the show, who exactly was he?
Mikhail Gorbachev was the last president of the Soviet Union. He was brought into power in March of 1985. He had a 6-year tenure. He resigned in December of 1991. I had the good fortune of being the last foreigner that he received in his Kremlin office before he resigned. And his greatness was that he believed that it was possible for the United States and the Soviet Union to transcend mutual assured destruction because of the escalating threat of a nuclear war and create a peace process. And in fact, what he called a global civilization. And so he made certain overtures. He withdrew all Soviet troops from Eastern Europe. He allowed Germany to be reunited. And he disbanded the Warsaw Treaty Organization. And the great tragedy of our time is that the United States did not reciprocate. And they actually violated the agreements that they made with Mikhail Gorbachev 30 years ago when the Soviet Union collapsed beginning in 1992 and took NATO to the east. And that, of course, is what led to the Ukraine war and really the collapse of relationships between the United States and Russia. It's been the great experience of my life being up close and personal and in a working relationship with a historically important statesman and watching, as we all have, the disintegration of that extraordinary moment into increasing hostility, and now, of course, in the Ukraine war and various other geostrategic complexities around our world.
It is. I've studied U.S. and Russian nuclear policy since the early 90s, and I couldn't agree with you more. We are just at a horrible precipice. I mean, I remember when I was I think it was in high school, when everything thawed with Gorbachev in office and Reagan. And I thought, wow, this is amazing. The world is finally transforming into a better place where we are not on this sort of hair trigger alert of mutually assured destruction. And to see the amount of backsliding is just, it's horrific. I mean, it truly is.
Yeah, and it's endangering the planet in our time. And I think the root of the problem has been the neocons in the United States
100%.
And the withdrawal by every president since George Bush Jr. from the various nuclear protocols and treaties that Reagan, Bush Sr., Nixon, the early presidents, John Kennedy, all negotiated with the Russians. There are now no more nuclear guardrails.
Yeah.
And it's an extraordinarily dangerous situation. And to give people a measure of how dangerous it is, the Bulletin of the Atomic Scientists marks the clock, the atomic clock, at 89 seconds to midnight.
Right.
It's the most dangerous period since the beginning of the nuclear age in 1945, even including the Cuban Missile Crisis, which the Bulletin of the Atomic Scientists marked as 7 minutes to midnight. That's the situation that we're in. And so these are just one of the many issues that the world needs to contend with, that I've been working on for many, many years now, in addition to other issues that have come up. But the nuclear issue has really been the source point of my civic activism.
So was the nuclear issue sort of like the single experience or turning point for you that set you on this path of kind of like a planetary scale of thinking?
Yeah, I would say that's true. Because when you really contemplate that all of us, as we're doing this interview, Matt, we're living in a world where United States, Russia, China, and half a dozen other countries have their nuclear weapons on hair trigger alert. And that means that any mistake, inadvertent or otherwise, could trigger a nuclear holocaust. And yet we all go about our normal business as if this isn't true. and yet it is true. And it's one of those issues that we need to deal with. And that was the great passion of Mikhail Gorbachev, was the elimination of nuclear weapons from this earth.
Yeah, I
mean, it's the great tragedy of our time that we're now closer to what he sought to avoid than ever before.
Well, and part of it too, you've got Russia. Firstly, you have China that has massively increased their warhead production, the amount that they're putting into their land-based strategic nuclear deterrent. Then you've got Russia developing all of these, sort of like crazy delivery systems, like the Poseidon nuclear torpedo and these hypersonic delivery systems. And now the U.S., it really hasn't been, I don't think the press has really picked up on it. But now the U.S. is actively discussing remerving the Minuteman III. And I forgot what the nuclear agreement was where we demerved down to one warhead on the Minuteman III. But now, because of this buildup, especially from China, North Korea, the amount we're backsliding and throwing these warheads back onto these ICBMs, it's obscene. And there have been so many instances where we have all come very close to nuclear annihilation due to sensor malfunction or I forgot there was one operation that happened during Reagan's term, I believe, where it was sort of a workup, and I understand that the Russians actually thought that we were preparing for a first strike. So I'm totally with you on that. It is something that we cannot continue to really to kind of bury our heads in the sand. But I want to talk about the State of the World Forum. So you helped launch the original State of the World Forum in the 90s. For those new to it, what was the forum originally created to do?
Well, what we did with Mr. Gorbachev after he resigned in the end of 1991, I was one of the first people that met him in Moscow in early 1992 and proposed to him that we work together to convene a global brain trust, which we call the State of the World Forum. And we worked on it for several years. And then between 1995 and the year 2000, we brought together initially about 500-600 people to the Fairmont Hotel on the occasion of the 50th anniversary of the founding of the United Nations. It was actually founded in the Fairmont Hotel in San Francisco in 1945. And so we met there. And then for the next 6 years through the year 2000, we would gather diverse individuals. We actually convened probably more diversity at more levels than any group had ever aggregated at that time. And then we spawned various strategic initiatives, Gorbachev on nuclear weapons reduction, Jane Goodall and Whole Child Initiative, Muhammad Yunus, with the Grameen Bank and how we could work there. So the ethos of that original State of the World Forum was transforming conversations that matter into actions that make a difference. And then 9/11 happened. And we all know what that meant. And so it was at that point that I flew to Moscow and we had lunch together and we agreed that we had done our thing and it was time to do other initiatives. He was interested in the International Green Cross. And then I went into academia, became president of Ubiquity University. And then last fall, the woman, Lynn Twist, who is the co-founder of the Pachamama Alliance that works in the Amazon in South America on land restoration and tribal protection. She was the moderator with me of the original State of the World Forum, and she called me up and said that she had just had this vision while she was down in the jungles that we needed to recreate the State of the World Forum.
I love that.
And I knew instantly, Matt, that was something that I needed to do. And at the time I was working with Danny Sheehan and the New Paradigm Institute. I was the director of their Washington office. I was working on the UAP Disclosure issue. But as soon as Lynn called me and said that it was time to recreate the forum, I instantly said yes. So I left NPI. And then I had the extraordinary experience a few days later realizing there's no Gorbachev.
Yeah.
What we did back then was possible because Gorbachev was this superordinate personality like Nelson Mandela, like Mahatma Gandhi.
Yeah. Great analogy.
And when he convened, everybody came, but there's no there's no equivalent to Gorbachev in our world today. So I was kind of flummoxed literally for a couple of months thinking it through. And then I realized that what the new State of the World Forum needed to convene a global conversation around was a question. And the question is, how should humanity in this time elevate its consciousness to creatively respond to four fundamental truths that are true no matter who you are or where you are on planet Earth? And if you think about it, one of the aspects of the zeitgeist of the world collective spirit right now is that people have lost track of what's real. And because of that, most people can't connect the dots anymore.
Sure.
And they've lost a framework for meaning. So any meaningful conversation has to begin with what can one assert to be fundamentally true. And what came was four. It's fundamentally true, no matter who you are, where you are around the world, that we're all experiencing accelerating ecological collapse. And that's independent of whether you believe in climate change or not. Just look around. We're experiencing ecological collapse at every level. And number two, we're also experiencing deepening instability and turbulence at every level of human affairs. Doesn't matter whether you're in Mongolia or you're a young person in Beijing or in Bolivia or the United States or Canada. Everyone is experiencing hypercomplexity and instability. And number three, simultaneously, we've just unleashed completely unregulated, exponential artificial intelligence.
Yeah. It's just frightening.
Number four, the US government is telling us that technologically advanced non-human intelligences are here on Earth, and they've been here for some time. And this was the point of the Age of Disclosure that just came out, if people have seen it, a documentary by Dan Farah, where you had an array of senior intelligence and political figures of the US government basically stating there's zero doubt, ladies and gentlemen, basically the ETs are here.
Yeah.
So if you put those four data points together, what emerges are four intelligences. We have human intelligence, we have nature intelligence, we have artificial intelligence, and we've got cosmic intelligence. So what's up for humanity is essentially the realization that we're not alone, and we can't make it alone.
Right.
That we have four intelligences, but only one future. So how we understand this is what the State of the World Forum is seeking to convene from December 14th through 17th of this year as a live interactive broadcast to which we invite all of your viewers to attend. You just go to stateoftheworld.forum and you can register. It's going to be an extraordinary conversation. I would say it's a conversation that has never taken place in human history.
Well, and I was looking at, sorry to interrupt. I was just going to say, I was looking at the list of speakers, and it is incredibly impressive, the minds that you've brought together. What is it these four things that are uniting them? And maybe just kind of tell our viewers some of the speakers that that are part of this. It's really pretty something else.
Yeah, it really is. Actually, it's quite extraordinary. Well, if you want to think about the flow, we're really opening the entire forum as a sacred space. And we are bringing in indigenous grandmothers from all over the world to open each session and to close each day. And that's a very important aspect of the State of the World Forum, is we want to honor the indigenous mind. Because we in the West, the likes of you and I, Matt, and probably most of your audience, are caught up in a worldview that historically has said that the UFOs, UAP don't exist, and that nature isn't important, it's inert, we don't have to pay attention to it. And that's why we brought the entire global process to the brink of extinction. But there are some people in our world, the indigenous people, who never lost track of the reality of nature intelligence and cosmic intelligence. So that's the first thing that I would say about the State of the World Forum. And then the first day, we're having an opening ceremony on Sunday the 14th. We will have an opening keynote address by Pippa Malmgren.
I love her.
One of the foremost public intellectuals from the United States, deeply involved in AI and NHI and tech. And then Anne Paulina, who's an Aboriginal woman from Australia, who happens to also have 2 PhDs.
Wow.
And a woman, Sulafa Victoria from Ecuador, a Gen Z in her 20s, that's going to be talking about the reality of the Gen Z perspective on the state of our world. So we're just bringing a bunch of diversity together. Then the next day, we're going to just go through the 4 fundamental truths, starting with Osprey Oriole Lake, the founder of the Women's Earth and Climate Action Network, Vladimir Posner on the nuclear weapons issue, a foremost journalist from Russia. And then we're going to talk about the genocide in Gaza. We're going to talk about human trafficking. We're going to be talking about the deleterious effects of social media, cruelty to animals. So when you think of the first 2 data points of ecological collapse and instability at every level of human affairs, what we want to bring out as we begin our conversation is the human race has become essentially dysfunctional.
Yes.
We need a new paradigm.
Yeah.
We need a new ingredient in our consciousness that can catalyze an upgrade. And that's what we're going to be dealing with in the afternoon on what we're calling the AI and NHI Revolution. Ross Coulthart, the Australian journalist, the premier journalist in the world.
Love Ross.
Is going to be moderating the panel. We're going to have Avi Loeb from Harvard talking about the 3-eye atlas. We're going to have Beatrice Valorial talking about her groundbreaking research indicating that there's a very deep statistical connection between the sightings of UFOs around the world and nuclear weapons testing between 1949 and 1956. So between 3-eye atlas and Beatrice Valorial's astronomical paper, that'll start the conversation, and we'll have various people commenting on that. And then in the second hour on that first day, we're going to take up an issue that is just beginning to emerge, and that is evidence around connection between AI and NHI.
Wow. Okay.
I mean, think that thought, everybody.
Right. Yeah.
Thinking that maybe the ETs are here or UAP is real. But what happens when advanced non-human intelligence starts to connect with advanced artificial intelligence?
Right.
And so that's going to be a very, very dynamic conversation. And then the next day, we've got Veda Austin. We're going to be talking about how the intelligences meet. How does human, nature, artificial, cosmic intelligence, how do they interconnect? What does it mean for humans to learn the language of consciousness, to engage in intelligible communication with other species, other sentient beings. So we've got, for example, Gary Shapiro. He was the first scientist to develop a mechanism for communication between humans and the upper primates. In this case, it was the orangutans. We've got Veda Austin from New Zealand, who's going to be talking about her research with water and the capacity of humans to engage in intelligible communication with water. Again, think that thought. Think about creativity and the evidence that it's emerging that creativity doesn't come from inside us. It comes from the sun. It comes from the cosmos. It comes from external aspects of nature through us, and we mediate them, and then we have a creative thought. And look at the telepathy tapes with Kai Dickens on clairvoyance. And then in the afternoon, we're going to have an incredible conversation between Diane Hennessy Powell, who was the scientist behind the telepathy tapes and this research that autistic young people are brilliantly clairvoyant and mentally telepathic. And Rupert Sheldrake, we're going to have an opening dialogue with Rupert Sheldrake and Diane Hennessy. We've invited Kai Dickens. It's going to be an extraordinary opening dialogue on the question of how do we learn the language of consciousness? And then we've invited Dahlia and Ledoux Burgoyne, a mother and daughter who live in Utah, who are extraordinarily clairvoyant. And they're going to demonstrate mind sight and mental telepathy. Dahlia, you can put blindfolds on her and she can read the driver's license in your wallet in your back pocket. How does she do that? And her daughter, who's an autist, who's only 14 years old, is one of the most mentally telepathic individuals, even in the autistic world. And then on Wednesday, we'll be talking about other aspects, but that gives everyone a flavor. We're going to end the entire forum with the announcement of the establishment of a Center for Planetary Intelligence with Chris Bledsoe. We're establishing Chris Bledsoe Center for Planetary Intelligence in North Carolina. Chris Bledsoe, as most of your listeners know, is probably the most studied ET experiencer in the world. This guy's been in communication with orbs for many, many years, and his book UFO and God is well worth reading. It's an extraordinary narrative. Truly. He's been studied by NASA, by the CIA, by the NSA, by Harvard, by MIT. I mean, this guy has a resonance with orbs. I've been with him on multiple occasions. The orbs just come down and commune with him. So we're establishing the Chris Bledsoe Center for Planetary Intelligence, where we can establish a research center for studying how these four intelligences need to be brought together, because we're way beyond the government of the United States thinking that they can control disclosure.
100%. Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more on that.
Out there, Matt.
Yeah, they're fooling themselves. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And the people of the world now have to take the accountability for increasing disclosure by beginning to establish intelligible communication with these non-human intelligences, these ETs, the UAP, however you want to talk with them, UFOs. Mm-hmm. They're here with advanced intelligence and technology. And we now have to take up the challenge of historic magnitude to learn how to engage in intelligible communication, not only with them, but with AI and with nature. And we take the position, in fact, that we will only regulate and tame AI, not through human effort, but by integrating AI into cosmic intelligence and nature intelligence. And this is where Beatrice Valorial's research comes in, and the testimony of thousands and thousands of ET experiences from around the world. I don't believe, if I could make a comment on The Age of Disclosure, this documentary, almost every speaker was trying to craft disclosure and UAP contact as a national security issue because there's a potential threat. And I want to state as clearly as I possibly can, I don't believe that's true. I believe that the UAP, the UFO phenomenon, emerged in modern history at the moment when the United States ignited the atomic bombs in 1945. And if you listen to what John Mack had to say, what Kathleen Martin has to say, all the people that have done research on the people who've experienced direct encounters with these extraterrestrial beings, they've come to warn about our nuclear weapons and about our destruction of nature. So in my view, we should be embracing these cosmic beings, not weaponizing our consciousness and treating them as a potential threat, which is the US government is currently doing. I believe that's wrong, and I believe it's dangerous. And what the State of the World Forum is seeking to initiate is a whole different conversation around how we integrate with them, not resist and weaponize ourselves against them. They're here with benign intent, in our view.
Yeah, I absolutely love this. I'm blown away. You know, of course, I went through the website and had a look, and as I mentioned, all of the names, or many of the names, I recognized, not all of them, but the brain trust that you've put together is just incredibly impressive. And I totally agree. You know, we are really at this crazy precipice that I don't think any of us could have envisioned all of these things kind of snowballing and coming together at once. You know, the NHI issue, what's going on geopolitically in the world, what's going on with our current administration, the whole NHI issue. I mean, it is just mind-boggling. And I think what is really going to be great about this World Forum is everybody that I speak to, everybody is worried. Everybody is trying to sort of figure out what the end picture of these various puzzle pieces are going to be. And the fact that you're bringing all of these really, forward-thinking individuals, like Pippa Malmgren, she's a friend. I've had many long conversations with her. I mean, she's just brilliant. Beatrice, who I just realized I've been mispronouncing her name a bunch of times when she's been on the show. So thanks for correcting me. I also butchered Tim Gallaudet's last name when he came on the show. But anyway, all joking, I tend to do that with guests. Yours is very easy to pronounce. But in all seriousness, everybody is on edge. Everybody is just, I think, incredibly frightened of what is just around the corner. So I'm just absolutely thrilled you've brought this back to 2025, again, December 14th through 17th. And where can folks sign up for this just amazing conference?
Well, you just go to stateoftheworld.forum and you'll see our webpage, and you can register very, very easily. And what I would say, Matt, is I'd like to underscore your last statement. You know, we are in a world where the center no longer holds. We are in a world where chaos reigns.
Yes.
And exponential change, both positive and negative, is exploding the boundaries of anything that we have thought was normal. And we're going to be going through a period between 2025 and 2030, not only in my view, but the view of many scientists, historians, indigenous prophecies, all are indicating that this next 5-6 years are going to be the most consequential years in all of human history. Just the advent of UFOs and extraterrestrial beings is the most momentous experience in all of human history. And then we've unleashed artificial intelligence and taken biological intelligence and put it into machines. And the ecologies erupting all around us, and all the human institutions of stability and control are breaking, bending, cracking under the weight of change they no longer understand and cannot regulate. And unless and until the human race understands this and really pauses, which is what the State of the World Forum is seeking to do. It's like almost like a pause. Come on, everyone, let's just stop for a minute and think as deeply as we can as human beings here. What on earth is going on? This is no joke what's going on in the world. We've got to pay attention, and we've got to somehow create a new paradigm. And our conviction is that if you take seriously these data points, and you take seriously that we've got 4 distinct intelligences on our hands here in planet Earth, and it's the human challenge to learn how to communicate intelligibly with them so that we can co-create a flourishing future. My God, Matt, the depth of the crisis doesn't even begin to match the extraordinary opportunity for growth and development and learning and consciousness expansion that would begin to happen if we learn the language of psi. If we learn the language of intelligible communication with these other beings, knowing that they communicate clairvoyantly. That's how nature communicates. That's how the ETs communicate. It's an extraordinary moment. And in fact, just one last thing, this is one of our major strategic initiatives. We're going to be rolling out, starting in January 2026, a global education program with some of the leading practitioners, including the autists, of how we can learn the language of psi, how we can learn the language of consciousness, ordinary people. Just imagine a world where you're walking down the street and you say hello to the tree, and the tree says hello back, that you actually can talk to your pets, that you're communing with various extraterrestrials. Just imagine a world in which humans and ETs have working groups with nature. And in fact, we're launching an award, a $100,000 award for the best proposals for how humans can come together with these other intelligences to create a flourishing future. And it's completely for free. And the one rule is you've got to use at least 2 other intelligences, probably AI and either nature intelligence or cosmic intelligence, or all 3, to come up with your proposal, because that's what's up for humanity. And it's the most exciting thing that I can think of. It's an extraordinary moment to be alive.
It truly is. I never thought we would be where we're at, both in good ways and bad ways. So Jim Garrison, this is just fantastic. Again, the World Forum, December 14th through 17th. We will include a link in the YouTube description. I know I'll be signing up. I encourage all of you watching at home to sign up for this really this extraordinary event. I'm so glad you came on the show to tell us about it. I know I learned a few things. Not the least of which is that I've been pronouncing Beatrice's last name incorrectly this whole time. So sorry,
all
Beatrice.
In the details, man. Yeah, stateoftheworld.forum, everyone. Thanks so much, man.
That was just fantastic. I am truly excited about this World Forum. I know I will be signing up right after this episode. But folks, if you enjoyed our interview with Jim Garrison, you're going to love this episode. Thank you for tuning in. And if you love our channel, please hit that subscribe button. I'll see you next time.